Dawson Rider with you.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. This is going to be my review for Power Rangers Issue 2, the second issue in the Omega Rangers story, picking up after they have broken Drakkon out of Zordon's prison and are heading to fight the emissaries? Not the emissaries. The Imperials, there we go. Much like Mighty Morphin Issue 2, this was kind of just an okay issue. Very much a filler episode, setup episode type of issue if you were to put it in TV terms. It wasn't bad by any means, there was some good stuff in it, but it just kind of felt like, yeah, this was okay. I think both of these kind of felt more like a letdown. Not like I said they're bad, but just in the sense that it was really exciting to start the new series, and then right out the gate in the second issue, it's like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't expect it to be hard-hitting every week, but I expected maybe a little bit something more to keep the momentum going. I would argue Mighty Morphin was a little more exciting just because you kind of had the neat stuff with the Zordon mythology, and I think there was a little bit more interesting stuff. This one felt like half of a filler episode that took place on the ship, almost like a bottle episode. Basically, the primary drive of it is to deal with the repercussions and the issues and the discussions that happen out of breaking Drakkon out. And you start with one of those classic things on TV you'll see, or in a movie, where you'll be in the middle of a crisis, and then they'll say, like, 6 hours earlier. And that's what happens here. Jason and G are kind of talking about, like, oh, you know, Zordon. Zordon is sending everyone after us. Do you think this was the right choice? And G's kind of doubting Jason's leadership abilities and choice. And I'm not saying this wasn't a choice without risk, and it's a perfect choice, but I'm Team Omega and Team Jason on this. I thought he made the right call, and I think Zordon is way overreacting. I mean, clearly Zordon couldn't keep Drakkon safe. Not saying the Omega Rangers aren't skilled, but if they could get him out, if Drakkon himself or somebody else wanted to get Drakkon out, that could have happened. And I think that Zordon's thinking too narrow-mindedly about Earth, and the Omega Rangers are thinking about this bigger threat. And I think Jason made the right call. It was kind of a risky call, but he made the right call. And I don't see that I'm not saying it was the squeaky clean decision, but I think it was a good call. And I think that they're being too harsh on him, and I think Zordon ultimately is kind of the bad guy here, because he still could have tried to track down Jason, but by sending all of these people after him, basically in an intergalactic APB from every source, is going to cause a lot more problems. Like, I would argue that would make it more difficult for the Omegas to hold on to Drakkon. So instead of focusing on making sure Drakkon stays secure while using him to help the Imperials, now they all of a sudden have to be fugitives for really reasons because of Zordon's ego. So, I don't know. I feel like this episode just called into question Jason's leadership, because then later Drakkon is sort of trying to manipulate Trini, saying, you know, you should be the one leading. I'm not sure if they're trying to do something where Trini becomes leader. Not that Trini hasn't had some good leading moments, but I think Jason's been doing a good job, especially over the course of the whole comic series. I think they've really showcased what a good leader Jason can be, because he makes the tough calls and he doesn't take them lightly, and he's not always perfect, but he gets the job done. And I think that was highlighted especially in the Necessary Evil arc, when they had to come back to help the Rangers with Zed, and they got business done under Jason. So, I don't know. That was clearly obviously Drakkon trying to manipulate her, but I just hope they're not leaning towards that, or leaning towards that Jason made a wrong call. I don't think that this Drakkon decision is going to be without consequence, but I think it was more of a right call than people are realizing. When all that's going down, they then realize the ship's being invaded, and of course they first think it's something to do with Drakkon, but it's actually these weird vampire creatures that have gotten onto the ship and start attacking, and Trini ends up doing this plan where she basically throws them all out into space, but the lead guy's there, and Drakkon, before he gets, like, energy sucked by him or whatever, he makes a deal with him and he says, okay, well, I'm going to take you and use you. Wait. Made sort of an alliance with Drakkon, but he's going to sort of use Drakkon as like an underling or whatever, and that's kind of where we leave off. Like, both issues ended with a cliffhanger. Like, mmpr, they were surrounded with the Green Ranger down, and this one is this vampire dude dragging Drakkon off. Now, that also sounded... Like I said, this issue is fine. I think there was some interesting conversations about the decision with Drakkon, and I like the conversations that are coming out of it. I just hope they don't go in a direction that make Jason seem like he was in the wrong, because I don't think it's a black and white situation. Like, I can see both sides on it, even though I'm on Jason's side for it. I think with the Drakkon stuff, as far as this vampire guy goes, it could go one of two cliche ways. One, he could make some sort of underhanded attempt to manipulate everyone and get out of custody, or he could prove himself as a worthy member of the Omega team. I would rather it be him just prove himself that he's not going to try to escape. Maybe something where he realizes that he kind of has no choice but to stay with the Omegas and help them. Like, they draw so much attention to the fact that Drakkon will betray them that it's going to be too obvious when he does. And the the thing is that I don't want Drakkon to be redeemed, but I don't want it to be so cliche where he's always trying to get out and it's just gonna be annoying. I want it to just see it turn into a very interesting, the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. So what I'm kind of hoping happens is that Drakkon sort of helps defeat these guys and there's just a begrudging alliance and there can still be interesting conflict and Drakkon's always gonna have an agenda obviously, but I just don't want to see so much time spent on us worrying about, oh, is Drakkon gonna betray us? Like, who cares? Like, we've done all the Drakkon stories with that. Obviously Drakkon's here and I think there's going to be some interesting stuff for it, but I don't want that to be the focus of this story. I want to start focusing on the Imperials and stuff, and I don't want the focus to be a debate every week about, oh, is Drakkon going to betray us? But overall, this, like I said, much like Mighty Morphin, was a very okay issue. I would maybe give it like 6.7 is kind of a weird score, but I didn't feel like it was quite a 7, like it wasn't that great, but it wasn't that bad either. But what did you guys think of the second issue? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell if you're going to hear some of my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.